All right, let's talk about studying. Today, we're basically going to throw out the old playbook. We're diving into the actual science of how our brains learn and hold on to information. We'll uncover the strategies that are backed by evidence, the ones that help you learn smarter, not harder. So let's get into it.
Okay, so think about it. Every single student has this kind of mental toolbox, right? It's filled with all the different strategies you've picked up over the years. The things you automatically reach for when a big exam is just around the corner. It's your personal kit for getting the job done.
But here's the big question, the one that changes everything. What if the tools you rely on the most, the ones that feel like they're working, are actually the least effective? What if they're holding you back? It's kind of like trying to build a house with a tiny screwdriver when there are power tools just sitting right there waiting for you. Oh man, we all know this scene. It is universal, it's late, the pressure is on, you're chugging caffeine, your textbook is just a sea of yellow, pink, and blue highlighter ink, and you're reading chapters for the third, maybe fourth time. This is cramming. It's probably the most common study strategy on the planet. And this is where the science drops a bit of a bombshell. According to huge research reviews, like this one from psychologist John Dunlosky, these go-to methods are just surprisingly bad. I mean, sure, they might help you squeak by on tomorrow's test, but for long-term learning, they're terrible. That knowledge you crammed in is probably going to vanish just as quickly as you forced it in there. So let's just call them out. The tools we really need to think about replacing are rereading, highlighting, and of course, the big one, cramming. The tricky part is they feel productive, but they often create what scientists call an illusion of competence. You see the material on the page and you recognize it, but you can't actually recall it from scratch. It's a trap. It's definitely time for an upgrade. So, if we're throwing out the old tools, what do we replace them with? Well, let's build a better toolbox. It's time to swap out those rusty old hand tools for some real, high-efficiency power tools. These are the strategies that have been proven by over a century of research to build knowledge that actually sticks around. Our first power tool is called practice testing. You might also hear it called retrieval practice. Now, this is not about getting a grade. It's a tool for learning. The simple act of pulling information out of your brain instead of just passively shoving it in is what makes the memory pathways stronger. It's like exercise for your brain. And this isn't some new flash-in-the-pan idea. People have known about this for centuries. Seriously. Francis Bacon was writing about it back in 1620. The famous psychologist William James described it perfectly in 1890. And the first actual scientific study proving it worked was published over 100 years ago. This is one of the most solid findings in all of cognitive psychology. So, how do you actually do it? It's really simple. Make some flashcards, cover up a section of your notes, and try to explain the concept out loud. And this part is crucial. Force yourself to write down the answer before you look. That struggle, that effort to retrieve the information, is literally what makes the memory stick. Your goal should be to get it right from memory at least once. This image really nails the core difference. Highlighting and rereading are all about recognition. You see something on the page and you think, oh yeah, I know that. But retrieval practice is about recall, generating the information entirely from your own mind. It's the difference between spotting a friend in a crowd and having to describe their face from memory. Totally different skills. Okay, on to our second power tool. This one is a direct attack on cramming. It's called the spacing effect, or distributed practice. And the idea is pretty simple. When you study is just as important as how you study. So what is distributed practice? It just means spreading your learning sessions out over time. So instead of one frantic 6-hour marathon session the night before an exam, you might do 3 2-hour sessions, or even 6 1-hour sessions, spread out over a week or two. Now, this comparison right here is everything. Look at the column for cramming. It feels easier, right? You get this quick burst of confidence, but the result? You forget it just as fast. Now, look at spacing. It feels harder at first because you have to work to remember what you did last time. But that little bit of forgetting and relearning is exactly what builds strong, long-term memories. So the practical advice here is to just plan ahead. Pull out your calendar. Schedule shorter, recurring study blocks for each class. Yeah, it takes a little more discipline up front, but trust me, it pays off with way less stress and much, much better grades in the end. This quote from learning scientists just sums up the whole trade-off perfectly. You have a choice. You can have the illusion of fast learning that disappears in a flash, or you can have the reality of slower, more effortful learning that actually lasts a lifetime. Okay, so we've got retrieval practice and we've got spacing. Now let's add a third technique that basically supercharges them both. It's called interleaving. And this is where things get really fascinating. Interleaving just means mixing up different kinds of problems or different subjects all within one study session. So instead of doing, say, 20 math problems of type A, then 20 of type B, you do a problem of type A, then B, then maybe C, then back to A, and so on. You mix it all up. A classic experiment shows this beautifully. Researchers had students learn how to calculate the volume of 4 different weird geometric shapes. One group practiced all the problems for one shape, then moved on to the next one. That's called massed practice. The other group had all the different problem types totally mixed together. Okay, now you've got to see these results because they are just stunning. During the practice session, that's the first set of bars, the group that did one type at a time did great. They scored an 89%. The interleaved group really struggled, only getting 60%. But on the final test a week later, look at the second set of bars. The massed group score completely tanked, down to just 20%. And the interleaved group, they shot up to 63%. A total reversal. So why on earth does this happen? Well, when you practice in blocks, you're kind of on autopilot. You just use the same solution over and over. But when the problems are all mixed up, your brain has to do 2 things. First, it has to identify the type of problem, and then it has to select the right strategy to solve it. This initial struggle has a name: desirable difficulty. It feels less productive, but that extra mental work is exactly what builds flexible, real-world knowledge. So let's bring this all home. The goal isn't to study for more hours. It's to make the hours you do study actually count. It's about replacing those old, inefficient habits with a brand new, high-efficiency toolkit. So here's your final scorecard. Practice testing and distributed practice, they are the absolute champions, very high effectiveness. Interleaving is right up there, especially for things like math and science. And way down at the bottom are old friends highlighting and rereading, rated very low. This is your guide for that toolbox upgrade. And this is why all of this matters so much. Learning isn't just about memorizing some facts for a class. It's about building a skill set for understanding the entire world. Knowing how to learn effectively is a superpower. It's something that will serve you long, long after you've forgotten the specific facts from any one course. So there you have it. You now have the blueprints for a much better way to learn. The only question left is, now that you've upgraded your tools, what are you going to build?